Welcome to episode 18 of the Torreya Guardians video series. Torreya Guardians, founded in 2004, is a group of citizen volunteers who use citizen science and private forested land, along with legally donated seed stock, to help restore America's most endangered conifer tree, Florida Torreya, Torreya taxifolia. I'm Connie Barlow, and it's mid-March 2016, and this program entails photo documentation and narration about one of the two most important groves of Torreya taxifolia anywhere in the world. It's going to be in North Carolina, the Biltmore Gardens, that's near Asheville, North Carolina, and both of these crucial groves are in the mountains of North Carolina, even though this species is called Florida Torreya, and it's historically been native only to a small bit of the panhandle of Florida and a little bit of adjacent Georgia. Now, these two groves in western North Carolina, one at the Biltmore and the other one in Highlands at a private residence there, are important because the one here at the Biltmore is about 75 years old in terms of its oldest trees. They've also been having some seeds and some offspring here. And the one in Highlands is probably about 90 years old. The oldest stems still growing in Florida are no more than 20 years old. Ever since the 1950s and 1960s, the Florida area has been so vulnerable to native diseases, at least 6 of them, that the Florida Torreya tree has been growing from the roots, dying back, growing from the roots, and dying back again. But here in North Carolina, in neither of these two groves, and in neither of the younger plantings that we've done since 2004, is there any sign of the kinds of diseases that you find decimating the trees in Florida. In fact, it's our contention that this endangered species, the best way to conserve and preserve it and to help it thrive is to rewild it northward. That's not what the Fish and Wildlife Service is doing legally under the Endangered Species Act. They're working with the diseases, trying to get it back, to find ways so it can counter the diseases in Florida, in its native range. I'll talk about at the end of the program why we think native range has long been past suitability for this species. And certainly as climate continues to warm this century, it's going to need groups like ours and other citizens to help this tree survive and thrive. Biltmore Gardens is part of the Biltmore Estate, established by George Vanderbilt in the Appalachian Mountains, a short ways west of Asheville, North Carolina. In 1939, the professional horticulturalist Chauncey Beadle acquired some Torreya taxifolia from Florida to plant here just as an experiment to see if they would thrive in the forest here. That was 1939. Since then, they've thrived and they've reproduced. The photos I assemble here were made on 3 separate visits. The first one was in February 2004, next August 2006, and then last year, April 26, the height of the azalea season, April 26, 2015, I had a video camera, so that's where the main video sequence will be coming from. Now, this is a detailed data exposition. It's meant for others in my generation and the generations who will follow us, who are dedicated to conserving Torreya taxifolia. And that is as private citizens using citizen science on private forested lands and keeping track, learning as we go about what slopes, what aspects, what elevation, what canopy, what plant associates the trees seem to prefer. Now, if you're just interested in growing a Torreya taxifolia for your own benefit and enjoyment, there are nurseries that legally sell them, and we encourage you to go there. No one should be stealing seeds from the Biltmore. They're very careful about harvesting. them every year and making sure they find good homes. So if you're interested in rewilding Torreya, please contact us, Torreya Guardians, and in a good year we'll have extra seeds to be able to distribute to newcomers. Or see if you can find the seedlings in nurseries and get a small group started yourself. Now here's the documentation. Okay, the star is where we're at.
Okay, this is the Biltmore house here. So this is this walled garden, okay? Just at the far end corner of this is the come out, and the sign. And then you go down, you go straight. What we did when we came out, we went that way. But you go straight on the road rather than the walking path. We went on the walking path.
Right, and so point out where the Torreys are.
And the Torreys are right in here.
Right.
The bend, it's the only thing like it.
Right. Okay, here's how you find where to go. These are some road intersections here. But this is that main sort of walled-in garden. The Biltmore house is up there, and basically everybody has to walk or drive down slope as you're going through here. So all traffic that way. This sign points to going to Antler Hill Village, Deer Park, and the Inn. You head down that way, and right where that car's going around the curve, that's where the first Torreys are, and then down the ravine a little to the right there. That's how to find them. Here's a map that I drew from the notes I made during my second visit to the Biltmore. That was in August 2006. During my visit in 2015, I was thrilled to see that every single one of these trees not only was still alive, but they looked healthy. What to notice on this map is we're going to be visiting the trees in 3 separate groups. The first one we're going to visit is outlined by the blue rectangle. We'll start off with specimen that I call J. It turns out that's the biggest one in this section. It will have a circumference of 32 inches. And in each one of these, you'll see Michael doing the measurements, and then I'll post in the distinction between the measurements I made in 2006 from what we were getting in 2015. Now, the 3 specimens that have black circles, those are the ones in 2006 that actually had seeds on them. As of August, the Torreya taxifolia has fully expanded seeds, but they're still green. They're not quite ripe yet. C and D were just small trees. They were descendants of the original trees at the Biltmore, and each of the C and D each had just 1 seed. S, over there on the far left, was also a descendant of the originals, and it had 21 seeds on it. So let's first go and take a look at specimens J through R. Okay, we're here in the original. Several of these are original trees, I think at least 8, maybe 9. We're going to go and get a circumference of each of them. The ivy looks good in here, and fortunately some still have the basal sprouts, so they're not cutting those off. Michael is going to read us.
This is 32.
32 circumference, okay. Let me get a view up here. Now that's another tree behind it, but boy, that is pretty tall. 30 feet maybe. Okay, this would be
18.
Okay, 18. You don't need to get the basal.
$28.
$28. Here's a sidewalk up there.
23.
23. It's got some really nice basals here. Though that one's not quite as tall. This one's probably also about 30.
24.
Actually, wait, let me see.
25.
Hold on. Okay, 25. There's a sidewalk here. We just did that one. That one's got all the basals here. 25.
30.
Michael's got 30 on. This one right here, basals cut away. And lowest down.
30.
30 on that one. There's a creek right there, and there's the road right up there. Hold on.
9.
Okay, that little one with all the basals, 9. Oh, right, because that's what, a dogwood over there it looks like. We've just finished looking at the Torreya trees inside the blue rectangle there, including R and Q, and that dogwood would have been towards the upper left corner of the blue rectangle. We missed one right at the beginning, and that's I over to the right of the blue rectangle there. We're going to go and swivel the camera now and go over and do that one. That one is small, so it's obviously one of the descendants of the originals. Okay, now there's a leaning one over here. Let's walk back over here. You see this leaning one over here? There, right there. Let's get a basal on this one. What are we along here? Boy, that looks like a liriodendron. Yes, indeed. Look at that gorgeous liriodendron. Good way to find it. Liriodendron have the same kind of mycorrhizal symbiotic helpful fungi roots, and look at right next to it we've got a Torrey. This would have been a reproductive at some point.
10. But it's just it's like it goes off.
Right, and then it was probably going for sun. See, that's right next to this liriodendron? I think it just simply decided to go for the sun. I'm doing a close-up of this leaning one because there's some, what's left, it would have released the pollen. They're a little dry now. But these would have been the pollen. So here we have a male, or at least male branches on here. And it's got some really nice...
Those?
Oh yeah. We're going to go up and get those next. So those were ones that were either the squirrels put in. I saw these in 2006. I remember those two. Either squirrels put in or the ground staff, when they find Torreys coming up in beds that squirrels have planted in other species zones, they'll often dig them up and find a good place for them. So Michael's going to head over there. I'll come over there too, but Michael, stand there for scale. Go up next to those Torreys there. There he is. And the road's right behind him there. Boy, that's a beautiful one.
3 here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 4?
4.
This is huge.
Okay, hold on. I'll start it again and I'll come on over there. Whoa. Okay. I think this is A. What I called A in 2006.
6.
At this point I fell. I didn't know that the video camera turned off, and so I don't have any pictures of Michael taking the circumference of B, C, D, or E. But I do have a couple still photos from August 2006 that I will paste in now. The first one will show C, B, and D specimens, and the second one will show E, where I'll be actually standing on the curve of the road looking back at E, and we'll be able to see the road, the straight road beyond there. So here we are, specimens C, B, and D, and as you look through into the background there, you see specimen J with the big one with the 32-inch trunk. All of these are descendants. Either a squirrel buried the seeds from the originals across that little ravine there, or the ground staff found them growing in a bed and moved them somewhere into a place where it's okay for them to grow. So here's E, and you can see the road back behind there that goes straight. So we've finished the A through E grove of young Torreyas right along the curve of the road. And before that, we explored the specimens I through R. So now let's go to the upper right of the map here and take a look at specimens F, G, and H. Here's a photo I took in 2006 of specimens F and G. Here's a look at F and G at a distance. Notice the tall, scrawny tops that they have. You see, when I first visited these trees in 2004, they were towered over by a group of pines. So these Torreys had been growing in a pine forest and getting just mottled sunlight, and they have a tendency to grow tall there. They can't make it to the upper canopy, but nonetheless, they're protected from the wind and too much sunlight by the towering pines. Now in this picture, you can see some tall pines off to the left and also to the right of the Torreys. But the Torreys look scrawny, and those remaining pines look scrawny too, because remember, this picture was taken in 2006, and this was after there was devastating hurricanes. It's all that was left of what had been a tall pine forest. I learned about this devastation by talking to the staff. Here's what I wrote in my notes right after my visit in 2006. The Biltmore reports that the broken stems and otherwise weakened and degraded condition of some of the original trees is due to the devastation by hurricanes Francis and Ivan in September 2004. So that would have been a little over half a year after my very first visit to the Biltmore. The estate lost hundreds, if not thousands, of large trees due to the saturated ground and high winds. Dozens of large pines in the adjacent groves were either uprooted and or broken. Biltmore arborists had to remove additional ones that had become safety hazards. After having grown under the pines for decades, the Torreyas have experienced sun scald and stress from drier soil since the canopy was opened, and opened wide. So when the tall trees were blown down, the staff came in, removed the trees and stumps, and initiated a new landscaping, including those young blue-green small white pines in the middle distance. My memory from 2004, when the pine forest was still intact, was that there were at least 6 large Torreya trees mixed in with the pines, so that's up in that upper right part of the map. Now there are just 3. Now I may be wrong, but I think a few of the original Torreya trees were lost to the hurricanes too when the pines came down. Fast forward to 2015, with video camera this time, let's take a look at the remaining specimens, F, G, and H. Okay, this is looking back to where we did the grove. The original 9 that Chauncey Beetle would have planted, and then over there, can't see it here, but the road and the 5 young ones that either the squirrels or probably the ground staff planted. And here's Three more of the originals.
This one's 37.
Okay, 37. In fact, let me check right now and see if I've got, yeah,
I'll
okay.
make it 38.
38. Okay, so this one is F. In 2006, I called it F. It's 38 now, and it was 30 inches, and I called it unhealthy. Yeah, look at that. Now, this is unhealthy because, actually, this is very interesting. Look what it's done.
This one's 31.
Hold on. F, G. Okay, G is 31 now. It was 27. So look at, Michael, point to all the growth on that one there. So it's doing a lot of growth low down, and you can see the tops. Sometime, oh gosh, between 2004 and 2006, there was very strong winds, hurricane or something, that knocked down the white pines that these had been guarded from the sun by. And you can see they lost their tops too, but they're not doing well. But this is what Torreys do. They are survivors. They put up a lot of basal growth. The roots were fine, of course, and so they put up the basal growth, and they're growing with that. This one too lost its top. Very interesting. They are survivors. Good thing that the Biltmore is willing to have a few ugly trees here. They've done a good job. And again, looks to me like longleaf pine hauled in from the lumbering areas and used as mulch around here to keep out the weeds. And the trees seem to do very well with it. Now let's go around, and we've got tree H. As I walk up the road here, again, this is another one of the originals, tree H, and let's see how it's doing. Okay, it also had some trouble at the top. You can see
23 inches to end.
Okay, say that again, Michael.
It's 23 inches at the height level.
Okay, 23 inches. Let's see what it used to be. This is H. Oh my gosh. In 2006, it was 13. Okay, look at this. It's actually got a lot more branches here than the other ones have. It's not very symmetrical, but it's it's getting enough. And this, I'm going to look up here. This is pure sun. Now, Torreys like to have some sun, but to get pure sun can be really tough during a hot, dry summer. And you can see they're up above the ravine here. Maybe they get some runoff from this road that would come down. But they are survivors. Let me look in here and see what kind of basal sprouting it's doing. Putting out some lower limbs. Ah, they got a nice little young pine, white pine growing again, but they had massive towering pines that was giving just a nice mottled sunlight to the Torreys, keeping them from sun scalding and too much heat. But now they just have to get by on their own. It's kind of like they're shading themselves and doing most of their photosynthesis through these lower leaves here, just kind of hanging on. So we've got one more Torreya individual to visit in this part of the Biltmore Gardens. That's specimen S to the far left on this map. Now you'll notice that this one has a black circle, and that indicates it had seeds when I visited in 2006, August 2006. It actually had 21 seeds, to be precise. Here's how to find it. This photo I took while standing on the sidewalk in February 2004, so that's before the hurricanes. To the far left are the small stems of that first grove of 8 Torreyas that we looked at. The giant pine, right there in the center, the giant pine no longer exists. One of the hurricanes destroyed it. But fortunately, that delicate deciduous tree leaning in front of it, it's got no leaves in February, is a dogwood. That's the dogwood I pointed out earlier. Fast forward from 2004 to March 2015. The pine is gone, but the little dogwood is still there. It's in full leaf now and still has some large dogwood flowers in March. Now the video begins. Okay, here's the original grove that we looked at, the 9 that we measured there. And here's a dogwood that marks the end here. And here's one more. This is the one in 2006 that I counted. I didn't take, but I counted and took pictures of 21 seeds here. They weren't ripe yet. Michael's getting a DBH.
12 on the main stem. There's a smaller stem that stems up from it.
Right. We're just getting the main stem. Let me take a look at, I think this one was 8 inches back then. Let's see here. Okay, that's marked S. Yeah. So it's 12 inches now, and it was 8 inches then. Very interesting. I mean, you can just see it has a lot of buds on the side here, vegetative buds. I'm going to go up and see if I can see any nascent female reproductive structures on it. Ooh, I think I see some. Okay, right in the center of the picture, I see 2 female, those are seeds, and I've seen some other ones, but the one I can probably get the best picture of is right down here, right in the center of the picture. I'll get in close. So this one is producing seeds. It takes 2 summers for Torreya seeds to mature. This being March 2015, these seeds would be beginning their second and final growing season. Now here's a picture taken in August 2006. These are seeds on the same tree, and in August they look like this, fully expanded but still green, so not quite ripe yet. Following are several more pictures taken in August 2006, mostly from this tree. Finally, here's one seed with my hand for scale. Here's a photograph I took in 2006 of a view from the south looking toward the sidewalk, and that yellow asterisk there marks the tree, Specimen S, that had the 21 seeds on it in 2006. And off to the right, I have an arrow showing the little grove of 8 or 9 trees, depending on how you count them, of large and small Torreya taxifolia growing there in 2006. That would be these specimens J through R. Now back to our video. So, very good. It's great getting the DBH. I'm so relieved that every single one of the trees that I found in 2006 is still here. And here on this side, they both got mulch here, but you can see they're using ivy or some kind of ground cover and ivy. Let's walk over here. This is a great way for them to do it. Looks like they've got English ivy, maybe something else meshed in here, and these are more of the original Torreys in there. Now that's a little new one there, rightmost, and then these are the originals, and you can see beyond there before getting to the little ravine or the little creek there, that's the longleaf pine needles. So very tastefully done, and yet seemingly to be superb, absolutely superb. Oh, this one's got some pollen structures on it. Oh yeah, let me see if I can get in here. Yeah, right there. Let me get down a little better exposure. There. They've already put out their pollen, but I remember last time I just marked down almost all of these are male, and there were 1 or 2 females up on the top of the road. We'll go back up there and take another look. But this is very heartening. The Biltmore is doing a great job with this species. We'll be able to watch it through time, and people who follow my generation can keep track of how fast they grow, how they're doing, and hopefully making sure that any seeds that are produced get used in some way or another. Some way or another, back in 2005, included the first seeds that we Torreya Guardians were ever given. In this photo, 130 seeds had been harvested by the Biltmore staff in October 2005, and they were received and cleaned by one of our original Torreya Guardians, Lee Barnes. Now, Lee lives only about an hour west of the Biltmore Gardens in Waynesville, North Carolina. Bill Alexander, who was the Biltmore forest historian back then, arranged for the donation. I took this photo recently of freshly harvested seeds from a different seed donor. Here's a close-up to see the thickness of the flesh that surrounds each of the very large seeds. When overripe and ready to fall from the tree, the flesh tends to dry out and turn purple. Now there are 2 more Florida Torreyas, a 5-minute walk west of the group we've been looking at. You walk down the same sidewalk west from Specimen S, and you get into the azalea section. It's absolutely gorgeous on our visit in 2015, pictured here. That large conifer in the foreground is an Asian dawn redwood, a meta-sequoia, and you can see it is directly across the sidewalk from the azalea area. Now, behind me are a large female and a large male Torreya. Very nearby are a number of other Asian conifers that are often mistaken for Torreya. They are genus Cunninghamia. Now, they're also from Asia, and they bear more traditional small cones, not a fleshy seed. And unlike Torreya, their branches are not prickly. In this video, you will hear me mistakenly call these Cunninghamia Cephalotaxis. Cephalotaxis is also an Asian species. It is a very close relative of Torreya. Both have large, fleshy seeds, but the seeds of Cephalotaxis ripen to red, and I've tasted them. They're very tasty. Here's a chart to show their relationships. First, genus Torreya, then genus Cephalotaxis, and genus Cunninghamia isn't listed here, but it is part of the conifer family Cupressaceae, the cypress family. So you can see it's more distantly related. Again, as you watch the video, whenever you hear me say Cephalotaxis, think Cunninghamia. Now here's the video. And over here we have a Torreya, another. Ouch. Ouch. Oh, yes, that's how you can tell. The 2 healthiest have always been in this group here, and in a moment I'll show you how to find it. But you see there's 2 main stems and then a third one that would have been a basal at some point. And right here. Ooh, okay. Quite a bit of vine growing up here. Let's see what it looks like going up. Still looks really healthy. This is the female. In August 2006, when I visited, there were 32 seeds on it. I had binoculars, so I tried to count every one, 32 seeds. Unfortunately, I did not take measurements in 2015, but back in 2006, the two full stems that remaining there, one is 35 inches in circumference and the other one is 29 inches. Now, originally there were 4 stems. One is totally gone. The other one, as this pans up, you'll be able to see about 6 feet off the ground. It was broken off. Back in 2006, I noticed that it had a metal tag on it that read Torreya taxifolia 149. Now, the video is going to pan around here, and I'm going to be walking back towards the road to get to the male. Again, there's just 2 old Torreyas back here, plus there's some seedlings that have spawned off from them. And here's the big double stem. Really beautiful. Looks quite healthy. And so it's got, as always, some basal sprouting going on. Let's walk around here and see what we get. A little bit more here too. Okay, I just got the circumference on these. The one on the left is 46 circumference inches and 40.5 on the right. Now these were reported to have been planted in 1939 by Chauncey Beadle, and the biggest one at the Harbison House, I think, I recall that was 51 or 52 inches, which would be older, 1920s planting, so at least 10 or 15 years older than that. So makes sense. This is the biggest one here in the Biltmore, closest to the road. It's the road right up there where you see the light. Back in 2006, after I had looked at the male and the female here, I crossed the road, walked up the hill a ways, and took a picture across. And so here you can see the M's for the 2-stemmed male and the F far right for the female. This is how they looked in 2006, looking back north from across the road and up the slope on the other side. So we finished the 2 old Torreyas near the azalea garden. That's the green asterisk on the map. And before that, at the yellow asterisk, are the various clusters of old Torreyas and their descendants that we looked at first. Now, there are several more places during this March 2015 visit where Michael and I came upon Torreyas. These are trees that I had never seen before. They are far to the west, just upstream of the bridge at Bass Pond, and that's the red asterisk. Let's go take a look. There's the bridge over the Bass Pond and the sidewalk there, and here is a young Torrey right there.
10 feet tall.
Okay, about 10 feet tall. There's a main stem and 2 other, these are probably basal sprouts to begin with, but I counted the whorls where the whorls would have been, and it looks like, at least if it grows like every year going vertical, if it was successful at that, then it's at least 14 growing seasons here. Now that's a beautiful tulip tree right behind it there. Now what's interesting is we go down, you can see there the sprouting, but right here, it's so far out, Torreys don't put up suckers from their roots. It comes out from the basal area. So that's got to be a seed that somehow got planted. I don't know, but here's what that one, I can do a top down on this one, get a chance to see. It's got four laterals coming out, and the terminal isn't going to do anything, at least this early in the season. So again, here we are at this small Torreya tree, looking over at the hemlocks, and right in the center, that's a liriodendron. Ivy all over the ground here. Hemlock branch right in front here, and that orangish trunk there, that's the old Torreya. Really tall, really healthy, really beautiful. Great to see. This is amazing what it's done here.
It's got to be 40, 45, 50 feet tall.
Okay, 40, 45, 50 feet tall. Double stemmed. And here it's got a branchlet. Michael, come on down here and give me an estimate of what you think. How long does this extend? It's pretty amazing. There's a tulip tree right behind it there. That's a tulip tree up there behind it. And some kind of conifers, maybe hemlocks. They're managing them. They're treating them here so they're not getting killed. Wow. Look at this. This is just extraordinary. Okay, this is a double stem. That's the sidewalk down there. And the one on the right is 55 inches. The one on the left is about 53. There's that poison ivy vine that I couldn't exactly get too close to. A lot of basal sprouts going up from this side here. Quite. Oh, actually, those aren't basals. That's coming... oh, yeah, they are. Coming out from the center between the two here. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, it's counting that as soil. So I'll have to find out which one this is and how much it's grown. Here's a wonderful long branch going out here. Oh, gosh, in this direction. Estimated maybe 20 feet, maybe not quite, maybe 18 feet or so. Here, I'll get out to the end of it and look back this way. Here we have it. And there you can see the really long one that stretches out there almost to the sidewalk. But here's where I'm on the hemlock grove side. It's very dark in here, and so as I look up the tree here, very easy to look up. It's not bothering to put limbs out over this side. Here it is looking up, and there's that liriodendron right over on the other side of it. So let's see what else is interesting in here. Very healthy looking. And just like the ones at the Harbison house over by Highlands. Dripping down by the road. Now it's not rooting in here, no evidence of it rooting, but it is going along the ground. This is the only Torreya specimen at the Biltmore that demonstrates this unusual growth form. Possibly others would too if they hadn't perhaps been pruned back by the ground staff, or if they also had to contend with the deep shade of a big hemlock grove such as this one has on the upslope, forcing this specimen to reach out for the sun on the opposite side. But 3 observations make me wonder whether this tree might actually be one of the Torreya species native to Asia. That is, it might not be a Torreya taxifolia, but instead a Torreya nucifera or Torreya grandis. First, it's located far west of the other Torreya specimens, which we know are Torreya taxifolia. Second, its circumference at 55 inches is 9 inches greater than the biggest one in the previous sets at the Biltmore. But it's only 2 inches greater than the biggest one that Jack and I measured at Harbison House in Highlands, North Carolina. The third piece of evidence is it's the only one with this interesting ground-hugging growth form, which is exactly what Jack Johnston and I noticed at the Harbison House grove of Torreya earlier that month. A number of the trees there had extended long lower branches out on the ground toward the sun.
This branch is approximately 20 feet long.
20 feet long, because that trunk right in the center is, what kind of tree is that?
That's
Buckeye. Buckeye. And so it's coming right along the ground from inside the grove there. So...
But it does not appear to be rooted down.
Yeah, so it doesn't have the capacity. Now, Jack, your experience with hemlock, what's the same and what's different with Torreya and hemlock?
Well, they both like sunlight. They apparently can grow quite close together. That's a similarity.
Can hemlock do what we see it doing here?
No.
Okay, so hemlock can't reach out like this. What about, does hemlock do any basal sprouting?
Not like Torreya.
Overall, I think it's useful to keep an open mind as to whether the grove of Torreya at Harbison House in Highlands might be an Asian species, and that this specimen at the Biltmore may also have been supplied to the Biltmore by Harbison himself in the 1920s. Harbison earned his living supplying arboretums, including the Biltmore and the Arnold Arboretum up at the Harvard area in Massachusetts. Harbison died in 1936, and that's 3 years before Chauncey Beadle is recorded as having supplied the Biltmore with its first Torreya taxifolia specimens. So it's a question worth pondering. Continuing our video exploration, Michael found another young specimen not far from the old one with the drooping branches. It's a bit further east and right at the junction with a more upslope path. The video begins with my noting the context. A side creek comes in from the north, heading down to the main ravine. And then I show more of the context at the end, including the Bald Cypress, the taxodium that's spectacular along the sidewalk. Very easy to find this location. The road is up there, but right here in front of me, Michael found a Torreya that was probably small when I was here 10 years ago. But here it is. This is not a cephalotaxis. This is a Torreya. Don't know if it's Florida. I don't know if it's nucifera. But it is a Torreya. So let's go estimate here. Oh boy, 15 feet, maybe 14. I don't know. But what's interesting is this one is a male. Here, we go in close here. There you can see some male parts there. Go down a little bit. There. You really see it well at that exposure level. There's a couple more here. So this is double-stemmed Torrey right here. Here's a way to get orientation. There's the main creek back there. In fact, aha! We are near the Bald Cypress, the taxodium. You can see there's some knees there. Very easy to see from the sidewalk. I'm standing on the sidewalk right now. But here's a little side creek that comes in here, and here's some kind of an exotic spruce. You can tell from the bark here, very obvious. Looking through here. Oh yeah, here's, go up here. This will be easy to find. Here's the little side creek here, a path there, sidewalk here, Bald Cypress knees there. And so if we just walk down this path a little, past this bed, got some azaleas there, get to this green lawn, walk right up through there, and just behind this area here is that 14, 15 foot tall Torreya. You really can't see it from here, but you've got to go up there. So this is how to find it. Here's the 3 places we found Torreyas thus far. 1 more to go. Michael and I walked the entire Woodlands Trail. Now that's the brown meandering path upslope of Bass Pond there on the far right. We were on the lookout for seedlings because years ago I was told that when a Torreya sprouted from a seed planted by a squirrel in a place where it impinged on some other species' territory, the staff would dig it up and sometimes plant it upslope in that vast forest. Sustainably managed forest is an important historical aspect of the Biltmore estate, because here was the birthplace of American forestry. This sign is on an overlook near the manor house. It reads, George W. Vanderbilt, following the recommendation of landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted, was the first American landowner to implement scientific forestry, the management and conservation of forest lands on a large scale. He hired Gifford Pinchot, founder of the Society of American Foresters, to develop a management plan for the surrounding forest. Biltmore's forest management plan improved the health of the forest while producing sustainable wood resources. And then it goes on about the forestry school there. Back to our map. So Michael and I did find 1 seedling, obviously planted by the garden staff, right along the Woodland Trail. I'm not sure exactly where it was, but it may be by the blue asterisks I'm showing on the map. Now, here's the video of it. This is the first one I've seen in terms of young that have been able to come in here. It's very close to the trail. Here, I'll take a look here. Take a look. It's very healthy, but young, quite young. There you can see the top growth last year, 4 branchlets coming out, 5 below it there in the first whorl, coming down. A few basal sprouts down there. So the way to find this one, this will work. Here on the Woodland Trail, just before it curves on the uphill part, here's a couple of the big trees here you can see on that side of the trail. And then over here are the other trees on this side. And this will be easy too. Here's the trail, and you see that coming upstream, from the upstream down here, we got a curve there. And before we curve again, we get to this lovely, very happy little Torreya here. So that's it for the documentation that I've made at the Biltmore Estate, the Biltmore Gardens, west of Asheville, North Carolina. Please go to, if you're interested, go to the episode 11 in this series. That's about the Grove and Highlands. Again, that one's probably about 10 or 15 years older and has been growing in very much wild, untended forest. You may also benefit from looking at episode 17, which is photo documentation and video narration that I put together of a number of visits that I've made to the original habitat, the native, historically native habitat in northern Florida, Torreya State Park, along the east shore of the Apalachicola River. Last fall, I also gave a presentation at the Forestry School at Michigan Tech University in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan about assisted migration in general and about the pioneering work that we citizens in Torreya Guardians have been doing with moving the neediest tree northward. In both of those videos, episode 17 about the Florida Torreya State Park, and also in my Michigan Tech Talk, both of those episodes will give you the details on why, from a paleoecological standpoint, it appears that the reason that Torreya taxifolia suddenly was vulnerable to diseases is that it was left behind in its peak glacial reserve. That is, the Apalachicola Valley Torreya State Park area was one of the peak places for all plants in the southern Appalachians to wait out the peak glacial time when it was very cold and when glaciers were all the way down into Ohio and Pennsylvania. But for one reason or another, possibly because its seed is just so large, it never made its way back north into the Appalachians. So you'll learn there about this ancient, resourceful, and very strange from our perspective, conifer, and why there's excellent evidence that not only is it ancient, but up until about 30 million years ago, all of this genus was living around on the northern latitudes of the northern hemisphere. And when the Oligocene started about 32 million years ago or so, the cold and dry came in and they separated out. California Torreya is a sister species as well as Asian Torreyas. But even though I can't tell the difference between the California and the Florida Torreyas, they've been separated for probably a good 30 million years. And so genetically, I'm sure they have some distinctions. At some point, I'm going to assemble my California photographs and put together a photo documentation of where and how California Torreya lives in the mountains of California. May the forest be with you.